The Empire had conquered 17 star systems. Their ships were magnificent. Their weapons were advanced. Their soldiers were trained from birth to kill without mercy. For 3,000 years, no species had ever challenged their rule. They believed themselves to be the greatest power in the galaxy. They were wrong. Commander stood on the bridge of his warship, the Crimson Fang. His purple scales gleamed under the artificial lights. His 4 eyes scanned the reports coming from the newly conquered planet below. Earth, the humans called it, a small blue world with primitive technology. The conquest had taken only 6 standard days. The human military had fought bravely, but their weapons were centuries behind technology. Their cities burned. Their governments surrendered. The war was over before it truly began. But was not interested in the adult humans. They would be processed as laborers for the mining colonies. What interested him were the children. Young humans possessed something rare in the galaxy. They could adapt to almost any environment. Their bodies healed quickly. Their minds learned faster than any other species. The scientists had discovered that human children, when properly trained, made the perfect slaves for dangerous work in toxic environments. The collection ships descended upon Earth's surface. They targeted schools, orphanages, and residential areas. Within hours, over 50,000 human children were taken. They ranged from 5 years old to 15. They screamed for their parents. They cried and fought with small fists. The soldiers laughed at their weakness. These tiny creatures would learn obedience soon enough. The children were loaded into massive transport cages. Each cage held 200 young humans. There was no food. There was no water. There was no comfort. The cages were designed to break their spirit before they even reached the processing facilities. Many of the younger ones fell silent, too terrified to make a sound. The older children tried to protect them, forming small groups to share warmth and courage. Among the captured was a 12-year-old girl named Maya. She had watched her parents die when the soldiers broke into their home. Her father had stood in front of her mother, trying to shield her with his body. The soldiers had cut them down without a second thought. Maya had hidden under the bed, her hand pressed over her mouth to silence her sobs, but they had found her anyway. They had dragged her out by her hair and thrown her into the collection vehicle. Now she sat in the corner of a cage, her eyes burning with hatred. The other children around her were crying. A small boy, no more than 6 years old, had curled into a ball beside her. He had not spoken since they were captured. Maya put her arm around him and whispered that everything would be okay. She did not believe her own words, but she knew that hope was the only weapon they had left. What they did not understand was that humanity had friends among the stars. The Terran Alliance had been established only 20 years ago, a coalition of human colonies scattered across the outer rim of the galaxy. When Earth fell, the message reached them within hours. When news of the children spread, something changed in every human heart. Admiral Sarah stood in the command center of the Alliance flagship, the Eternal Wrath. She was 62 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her own granddaughter had been on Earth when the invasion began. The last message she received was a video of little Emma waving goodbye before the school bus arrived. That was 3 days ago. Now Emma was somewhere in a cage, alone and afraid. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the intelligence reports. 50,000 children. 50,000 innocent lives stolen by creatures who saw humans as nothing more than useful animals. She had spent her entire career maintaining peace. She had believed in diplomacy. She had believed that violence was the last resort of the ignorant. But as she looked at the faces of the children in those reports, something ancient and terrible awakened inside her. The Terran Alliance had only 47 warships. The Empire had over 3,000. By every calculation, an attack on the Empire was suicide. Every military strategist agreed that the Alliance should negotiate. Perhaps they could buy the children back. Perhaps they could offer technology or resources in exchange. It was the logical choice. Admiral rejected logic. She activated the emergency broadcast system. Her voice reached every human colony, every ship, every station across the galaxy. She spoke simply and clearly. She told them what had happened. She told them about the children. And then she said the words that would change history. They have taken our children. They have put them in cages like animals. They believe we are weak. They believe we will accept this. They are wrong. Every human who can fight, every ship that can fly, every weapon that can fire, I am calling you now. We are going to war. We are going to bring our children home. And we are going to teach the what happens when you touch human children. The response was immediate. Ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from asteroid fields. Retired soldiers picked up weapons they had sworn never to use again. Scientists abandoned their research to build new instruments of destruction. Miners modified their drilling equipment into weapons. Cargo vessels were armored and armed. Within 72 hours, the Terran Alliance had assembled a fleet of over 600 ships. But numbers alone would not defeat the Admiral knew this. So she reached out to an old friend, a being known only as the Collector. The Collector was an artificial intelligence that had survived from a civilization that died before they even existed. It possessed knowledge of weapons so terrible that most species refused to acknowledge they could exist. Had saved the Collector's core programming from destruction 50 years ago. Now she called in that debt. The Collector provided humanity with the designs for a weapon called the Cascade. It was a frequency-based system that targeted the nervous systems of specific species. Once activated, it would cause every within range to experience their worst nightmares as reality. Their own minds would destroy them from the inside. It was a weapon of pure terror and did not hesitate to build it. Meanwhile, on the Crimson Fang, Commander received troubling reports. Human ships were gathering at the edge of their territory. Intelligence suggested they were planning an attack. Found this amusing. The humans had no chance against the might of the Empire. He ordered additional patrols but otherwise continued with the processing of the captured children. The first shipment of children had been moved to a processing station called the Black Forge. It was a massive structure built into an asteroid, designed to break the will of slaves and prepare them for service. The children were separated by age and health. The weakest were marked for immediate termination, as they would not survive the training. The strongest were given implants that would allow their new masters to control them with pain. Maya was among the strong. She had been fitted with a collar that sent electric shocks through her body whenever she disobeyed. The pain was unbearable, but she refused to scream. She watched the guards with careful eyes, memorizing their patrol patterns, noting the locations of doors and weapons. She did not know if rescue was coming, but she was determined to be ready if it did. The Alliance fleet arrived in space without warning. They did not come through the main hyperspace routes. They came through a path that should have been impossible, guided by coordinates provided by the Collector. They emerged from hyperspace directly above the Black Forge, their weapons already firing. The defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Human ships moved with a ferocity that tactical logic. They did not seek to preserve themselves. They did not retreat when damaged. They flew directly into enemy formations, exploding their own reactors to take ships with them. Every human pilot knew that this might be a one-way mission. None of them cared. Admiral commanded from the center of the battle, her voice calm as she directed the assault. The Cascade weapon was activated, and across the fleet, soldiers began to scream. They saw visions of darkness and death. They saw their own failures hunting them through endless corridors. Many turned their weapons on themselves. Others simply collapsed, their minds shattered beyond repair. Commander watched in horror as his empire's greatest warriors fell without a single human bullet touching them. His communications officer reported that reinforcements were coming, but they were still hours away. The humans were cutting through his fleet like fire through paper. And then the message came. Admiral appeared on his. Her face was carved from stone. Her eyes held no mercy. "You took our children," she said. "You put them in cages. You planned to turn them into slaves. You thought we would accept this. You were wrong. Surrender the children now and I will only destroy your military. refuse, and I will end your species. Laughed, you are bluffing. You do not have the power to threaten the entire empire. Smiled, it was not a kind smile. Watch, she said. The eternal wrath fired a single weapon at the largest moon in the system. The moon cracked like an egg. Within seconds, it broke apart into 1 billion pieces, raining destruction down on the nearby colony world. 600 million died in an instant. His face remained unchanged. That was one shot. I have 17 more. Surrender the children. Surrendered. The rescue teams found the children in the Black Forge. Many were injured. Some were too traumatized to speak, but they were alive. Maya was among the first to be freed. When the human soldier removed her collar, she looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much darkness. "Are you here to take us home?" she asked. The soldier, a young man who had lost his own sister in the initial invasion, knelt down to meet her gaze. Tears streamed down his face. "Yes," he said, "we are taking you home, all of you, and nothing will ever hurt you again." The galaxy watched as humanity carried its children back from the edge of hell. The Empire did not survive the year. Their allies abandoned them. Their colonies rebelled. Their military was dismantled piece by piece. The message spread across the stars, carried by traders and explorers and refugees. Do not touch human children. They are loved beyond reason. They are protected beyond death, and any species foolish enough to harm them will face the full and terrible wrath of humanity. Admiral retired after the war. She spent her remaining years on a small farm on Earth, surrounded by her family. Little Emma grew up to become a teacher, helping children heal from the trauma they had experienced. Maya became an advocate for the protection of children across the galaxy, traveling from world to share her story. And in the quiet corners of the universe where species whispered about the dangers of the cosmos, a new warning was added to the old ones. Beware the void, beware the dying stars, but above all beware the humans, for they are small and soft and short-lived. But when you threaten what they love, they become something else entirely. They become doom itself.